Welcome to the Astrology Magic Podcast, where deep truth meets radical transformation. I'm Rachel, your astrologer and guide, here to speak the kind of truths that rattle around in your head until they land in your body and change your life. This podcast is not here to meet you where you're at. It's here to meet you where your soul is begging to go. I don't do light and fluffy. I do real, raw, cellular level evolution through astrology, presence, embodiment, and self-honesty. If you're tired of superficial spirituality and ready to live in alignment with your highest self, even when it's uncomfortable, you're in the right place. Let's drop in. I am completely unhinged. And you can blame my solar return. Quite literally, I talked about solar return charts when I first started this podcast. It's the reason why I started this podcast was because of my solar return. But I just had a new solar return a couple weeks ago, and I was reflecting on all of the decisions I made throughout the last year, solely based on my solar return. Not logical decisions, completely unhinged, but they were the source of massive shifts, massive, we'll call them quantum leaps in my life. And I'm going to share why I made those decisions based on my solar returns, and I made something special for you guys too. So I'm also going to share why I made a whole course to help you understand how to use your own solar return chart several times throughout the year without needing to be an astrologer, solely using ChatGPT and the guidance that I give you. Because I use ChatGPT to decode my solar return throughout the year. I've been following my solar return for some years now, and every year it's just shift, big leap, because I'm relying on the magic of it rather than my logical brain. And I really believe that the world is way more energetic and magical than logical at this point. I'm going to scream it until the cows come home, until I'm on my deathbed, because it's my life's work that I've discovered. Earth is not logical, because humans are not logical. We are emotional. We are energetic. There's just so much going on that you can't see. And so I look at a solar return chart as a big fat permission slip that I use to make a bunch of unhinged decisions. So let's get into them, and I'll tell you all about the course that's going to teach you how to do the same really easily, like today. Like, you could get your solar return from this past year today and go so deep into it and ask so many questions about it if you got this course today. Okay, the first unhinged decision I made. Oh God, this isn't the first one I made, but this was a pretty unhinged one. So actually, no, I'm going to start before this one. So on my birthday, I signed up for Amy Belair's psychic school. And at the time, I was really low on money. I think I had maybe $500 left in my bank account, and I think I needed it to pay rent. But everything in me, and it said it in my solar return, that I had luck, growth, and expansion around my material possessions this year, which I definitely did 1,000%. I get money so much more than I ever did before. I feel so relaxed and just not scared about money. I'm not making decisions off money anymore like I used to. I don't feel sick to my stomach about money if I used to. I feel like I can just live my life, and I know it's always going to work out, and it's just how it is. It's what the last year did for me. So anyways, it started with me spending my last, I think, $500 to sign up for this course with Amy Belair. And it was unhinged. It literally made no sense. I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent that month, but it said in my solar return that I was going to have good luck financially, and that risks and just asserting myself and being bold and courageous was going to be highly supported in my life this year. And so I did it. And that me signing up for that course, it was more than what I learned in the course. It was the fact that that course got me on Amy's podcast, and then I attracted some just the most favorite people I've ever attracted into my life. My most favorite people I've worked with, people who are like dream clients, dream people who then actually brought more money and self-worth and value into my life because I had Jupiter in the second house for the solar return year. And Jupiter in your solar return chart is where you gain luck, growth, and expansion this year ahead. It was in my second house of self-worth, values, material possessions. So that was unhinged decision number one. And then obviously the money came in immediately. I think like a week later, I ended up making way more money back and I had all my rent and I could pay all my bills and it was fine. So that was also the beginning of me recognizing how much I could trust money and how it's really always there for you. Like truly, if you really believe money is always there for you, it is. It is, no matter how unhinged of decisions you make. So that's one thing that my solar return taught me. Number two, another thing that was happening in my solar return this year is I had a square, a challenging aspect between my moon in my solar return and Venus in Taurus in the second house. And so I didn't know how it was going to play out. What I did know is that I wanted an upgrade in my living situation. I loved where me and Ryan lived. I considered it my dream apartment, but I didn't have an office. And so I didn't feel like I really had a business. And I felt like I wasn't embodying the version of me that I was growing into. And so I was manifesting having an office, but, I told myself, okay, well, you're going to have to make a fuck ton more money so you can afford a fuck ton more rent because we're in the Boston area. And gosh, rent is like, it's ridiculous here. Like $4,000 a month would have to be the rent that we would settle for if I were to have an office, is basically how it was going to play out. And it was just me and Ryan paying. So when I saw Moon square Venus, I didn't know that meant I was going to move. The moon represents your home. A square is a challenging aspect. Venus is beautifying. It's material possessions, it's relationships, it's money. And it was in my house of money. And so one day I saw my neighbors downstairs were moving out and they had the extra rooms. They had the extra rooms that would give me my office, Ryan an office, we'd have a bedroom. It's so much more space down here. We have like a wood burning stove. We have a giant living room, like even more big of a kitchen. The selling point to the apartment we lived in before that was upstairs was the kitchen. It had these really beautiful Italian marble backsplash and counters, and it was brand new and it was huge. This kitchen's even bigger. This kitchen is like, we could throw a whole dinner party and everyone could, with tons of people, and everyone could just be in our kitchen because it's basically like a kitchen and another room. So anyways, one day I saw them moving out and I texted my landlord. I was like, why do I see our neighbors who just moved in a year ago at the same time as us moving out already? And they said they were moving out. And I was like, fuck yeah. And I found out what the rent was. I was like, oh, that's a huge stretch, but I would get an office. And so I brought it to Ryan and he was like, oh my God, well, we could make it happen, but it would be a stretch. Because here's the other thing. We had 3 trips planned in September. So we were going to be going to Martha's Vineyard and then maybe California and then Texas, or it was some order like that, like 3 trips in 1 month. And we would have had to move out in August leading up to these 3 trips in 2 weeks. So it was like a lot of energy, a lot of figuring things out. We had to figure out the money. We had to figure out the time. We had to rush it, And it was definitely that square, that challenging aspect. I was staring at my solar return. And this is what I'm teaching you to do in the course that I'm going to tell you about at the end, is how to make scary decisions that feel so right in your body. Everything in you desires this and wants it, but it doesn't make logical sense. In my solar return, because I saw that square between Venus and the moon, and I brought it to ChatGPT and was talking through that aspect, I realized that this situation was that aspect, because the moon is your home, Venus is money, It was a square, so it was a challenge. It was going to have to happen really quickly. Squares can also feel like a lot of action that has to happen all at once. And so, we did it. I made the decision because I told myself I was going to be supported financially and I was going to be supported time-wise, and it was the best decision we could have made. I cannot even tell you, it instantly upgraded me. I now have this beautiful office that I'm obsessed with. I truly feel like I walk around my house and still it's 6 months later and I look at everything and it gives me an orgasmic feeling in my body. And everything it just elevated both me and Ryan and who we are in our businesses, and it was a huge quantum leap. So that was one big unhinged decision I made that was confirmed by my solar return. It was a lot of energy, but worked out so well. Another thing that I'm teaching you guys in the course is the moon phase in your solar return is so important. And so the moon phase I had for this past year was a first quarter square moon. And the first quarter square moon phase means a lot of crisis, going into action, a lot of having to make decisions and leaping into the unknown. And it feels like you have to leap into crisis and fix something. That's what a first quarter square. So I was like, oh boy, this is the energy all year. But that helped me navigate everything because that was the energy when we moved. And I was like, well, this is going to work out because it's the energy of the year and I'm here to jump into action. But there's so many other things that I found myself having to jump into action around. And how do I even explain this? There are so many things that I twisted and turned this year. I started a membership in order to build up a library of work that I could then potentially sell. I was almost like building back end of my business that was supported in my solar return. I thought I was going to have this membership though all year. And when it got to be about December, I just slowly stopped wanting to do the membership. I didn't want to do it at all. And I felt like I needed to quickly pivot. It was another one of those tension, that first quarter square energy of all right, I gotta just stop doing this, and that's a good amount of income that I'm gonna lose. I mean, not that much. I was only making maybe $600 a month from that membership. But, it's still sad to lose $600 a month. And I ended it, and quickly, I attracted new one-on-one clients. I was a little bit in a crisis around money, having ended it. I didn't know how the new money was going to come in, but I knew I was supported because I had Jupiter in my second house. So it helped me kind of take a breath and know that it was going to work out. And number two, I knew this crisis energy was part of my growth this year. And so it helped me surrender even more into that crisis energy. And then I had 2 one-on-one clients come in, and I surpassed the money that I had just let go. So that's just another example. And again, I teach you how to understand the moon phase you're in for the year ahead. My solar return this year, the moon phase is different. The solar return I have this year, I'm in a waning gibbous moon phase. That's what I'm in this year. So now this year is about teaching everything I learned from the last year, hence what I'm doing right now. I'm following my solar return right now. I'm telling you the things I learned. That's what I'm doing. And I'm making courses around the things that I learned, the things that really aligned my life, hence the solar return course. Let me think of some other unhinged decisions that I made. Well, I would say letting go of the community was also supported in my solar return because I had Pluto in the 11th house of community. Pluto's death and rebirth. I definitely birthed a new membership community and then let it go. So that was also supported in my solar return. I was just more surrendered by the end of the year. The last, I'd say, 4 months of my solar return from February to this past May, I just completely surrendered reaching any goals. And that's also supported in my solar return. I had Saturn in Pisces in the 12th house, which showed me throughout the year I was going to be really learning surrender and trust and leaning into how things feel energetically and leaning away from logic, which is 1,000% where I ended up. If you've listened to several of my podcast episodes I've recorded over the last month or two, is I've just realized, That lesson's completely sunk in now. We're energetic. It's about how things feel. It's not about logic. So that was my Saturn playing out, and it gave me the confidence to really not strive and reach goals the last 4 months of my solar return. And I was so supported. Everything worked out. I got my dream trip to Italy. Actually, that was when I manifested my dream trip to Italy. So there's so many different things. I healed my voice. That was part of my solar return. And I healed my voice in more ways than just my podcast. I thought that starting my podcast would be the source of how I heal my voice. But what ended up happening the first couple months of 2025 was I ended up doing a lot of experiments around how I use my voice. I recorded some episodes on this, and I practiced creating awkward silences between me and people. I practiced not people pleasing at all. Like if I would see someone at the dog park, and I used to work with them, and I felt like I had to have small talk with them, but no part of me wanted to. Old version of me would have that small talk anyways. But because I was healing my voice this year, and I was following my solar return and the other astrology that was happening at the time, I decided to run that experiment and practice being an asshole. I don't even know if it's me being an asshole. It was just me not talking to people if I didn't want to. Leaving them hanging and putting myself first. And I would say that's one of the most healing things I've ever done. Even right now, I feel so... I'm like, yes, my voice fucking healed this past year. I feel so much more me. And my North Node in my solar return for this past year was in the first house of Aries. Me, the house of me, the house of my identity. Oh, that was the other thing. My solar return is what pushed me into self-concept work, which became a tool that was not just impactful for my life and changed my life. I really believe that's why I manifested this new apartment, because I was seeing myself as a new person. But it was also a tool that changed my clients' lives so deeply. And I got that idea and started learning about it because it was in my solar return. I probably wouldn't have started to learn about self-concept work if I didn't see my North Node with Mars in Aries in the first house. So yeah, that's a lot of things that I learned from my solar return last year. And this year, a really big part of my solar return, I have Mercury as my Lord of the Year, which I teach you how to find your Lord of the Year. It's based on the age you're in my solar return course. Your Lord of the Year becomes a very important planet in both your solar return chart, but also in transits that astrologers talk about. So when you know your Lord of the Year and you're hearing astrologers talk about different transits throughout the year, you know, oh my God, that planet is my Lord of the Year. I'm going to pay attention. So like for me this year, Mercury is my Lord of the Year. So actually yesterday we had a Mercury Cazimi. Mercury was with the sun, and I had a giant illumination. Actually, I had a lot more money come in all of a sudden, and that's what a Mercury Cazimi is like. It's like this illumination in your thinking and communication and messages. Mercury's the messenger. So God, I got so many amazing messages yesterday, but I'm paying attention to Mercury transit since Mercury is my Lord of the Year. But here's the other thing. Because of how Mercury is placed in my solar return chart, and because of where my sun is in my solar return chart, a big part of who I'm supposed to be this year is to just be unhinged. Like I'm here and I'm just allowing myself to be unhinged. I'm allowing myself to be messy, to change my mind a lot, to show people my thought processes and not need to have it all figured out, not needing to have it all together, but owning my worth in my thought process. When I came back from Italy, I recorded a podcast how I didn't even know if I was into astrology anymore. And then a couple days later, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Rachel? You're still obsessed with astrology. You just want to talk about it in more of a natural way, which is my Mercury in Taurus in the 10th house. Taurus wants naturalness. It wants you to talk about things in a way that is in alignment with nature and what's really true in presence. And so my sun in the solar return year that I just entered into is with Uranus, which makes me just like who I am this next year is so unpredictable. I'm just like this unpredictable girly. And if I didn't know that, I would have felt really bad about myself for sharing my mental thought processes as much as I did the last few episodes I put out. But I just told myself, this is who I'm stepping into this year. I'm a little unhinged. I'm a lot unhinged. And my solar return is my permission slip. And I'm not going to fucking feel bad about it, because this next year for me, based on my Lord of the Year, is about learning to heal a deeper layer of my voice. And that's the layer where I don't care if people don't agree with me. And I don't care if I confuse people or people think that I'm unhinged or not professional or whatever people think of me. And I've definitely been experiencing that the last couple of weeks. So that is why solar returns are so powerful. They just guide you into the deepest surrender, the deepest permission slip, and the most growth out of a lot of astrology tools that I use. And it's simple, and it's just this guide that I refer to anytime I need to make a big decision throughout the year, or I feel bad about something. I just pull my solar return into ChatGPT. I give the situation, I gain clarity on it, and then I know exactly what to do. Because in my experience, when you make decisions in your life with clarity and confidence, they always work out. And that's why permission slips are so important, because a permission slip is always going to give you permission to find success. It's not just a permission for you to do something. When you lean on in permission and believe it's going to work, it does. So if you would like access to my solar return chart class, where you can literally populate lifetimes of solar returns for yourself, you can get it for only $99 right now. The price is going to double in the next couple weeks. So get it now for $99 and start aligning with your solar return, with your Lord of the Year. It doesn't matter if it was just your birthday or your birthday was 6 months ago. You can always tap into your solar return chart and gain giant, massive growth. And you can also use it to reflect on the year you've had so far and how it aligns, which is so fun. At least I think it's fun. All right, that's it. Now you get to be unhinged just like me. I'm guessing if you listen to this podcast, you might already be a little unhinged like me. I mean, why else would you listen to me? You know? And I love you for it. So I'll see you on the next episode.